Let's just start by pulling the belly in, tightening the belly, and then relaxing. Working, always against resistance. And then fists front and back, and the same thing. But now we just feel the back a bit more because we've got a hand on it. Really tighten at that point. Trying to flex the lumbar spine. It's difficult. Now just into riding horse. And now the arms coming in and out. But what we want to do is feel the resistance. So imagine you're in water. So as I bring my hands in, I'm displacing water. It's difficult. I have to imagine it. And then here, I'm pushing against something. I still want to try and keep the action starting in the Dantian Min Meg, belly, lower back. We're not used to work. We're not used to physical work. I want to feel just how my mind has to concentrate and buckle down and just get on with it. There's no breaks. There's no possibility for my mind to wander and have a little break. I daren't stop because it's going to be impossible to start again. The more difficult it becomes, so the more resistance I imagine, there comes a point where I have to activate my spirit. I have to almost get angry with this resistance. And what that will do is make you a little bit single-weighted. So you won't want to do both at the same time. Something in you just knows that if there's a bit of a wriggle to your movement, then it's just more effective. So one side happens and then the other. And then just bringing it back. And now the same thing, but on a smaller scale. We want the body to have a natural return. So my body can stretch, in which case it's behaving like elastic. And when that force is released, it will spring back to its normal shape and size. And the body can also be compressed like a spring. But when it's released, it will spring back to its normal size. So that's how we want to feel the body composed of, and that's how it behaves. So let's now just try with the hands. Just imagine you've got like a loop of elastic around your hands, and you just move them apart, but you're feeling that pull back. So you're moving against this elastic resistance. And then you allow it to pull back, but now you've got a long spring between your hands. And that compresses, and then that pushes back, and now you've got the elastic again. We want to feel the energy. The energy that just precedes the movement. So I'm pushing against this elastic band that's wrapped around my two hands. And that elastic is wanting the hands to pull back in. So as I reach out and stretch the elastic, I'm feeling that return. I just allow the hands to go with that. And now my hands are compressing this spring, and this spring is wanting to spring my hands apart. So I feel that, and I allow my hands to go with it. I want to feel the energy that my body follows. So something is being squeezed out, and my hands flow with it. And now I'm stretching that elastic, and that elastic is trying to pull the hands in. So I feel that flow, that movement inwards, and then I let the hands go with the movement. So the hands are moving, but the feeling is that the movement precedes the hands. The hands are following a movement, rather than simply being these two hands that are moving. And then just back into riding horse. And now feeling gravity. Gravity is pulling my whole body down. But this is my center of gravity, my Dantian Ming Men. It's as though my mass is concentrated at the point of the Dantian. And just relax so that you can feel the natural springiness of the legs. Gravity is pulling me down. And it's a bit like going into a spring. So if you have a coiled spring on the ground and you press down into it, it will contract. Your hand will approach the ground, but it's actually being pushed up by the spring all the time. And the deeper down you go, the more the force of the spring is trying to recoil. And so if you just press down on the spring and just relax, you can feel that upward force as an energy, as something that's flowing into you. So this is what we want with the body when we're standing. Gravity is pulling me down. If I can soften and let that feel like a flow through my body down, then the spring of the legs will also flow up through me and fill my body. So gravity is sort of naturally depressive. It's sort of deflating. As I'm pulled down, I'm sort of almost collapsing, wilting. But the energy that's coming up from the ground is the opposite. That's actually swelling me. I want to feel those two energies present all the time. If ever I'm in a state, it's a resonance. It's two energies that are vibrating together. And now let's move side to side, feeling that spring quality. So we work often with the stretchy pulling with the leg. Now let's work by going into the leg and letting ourselves bounce out of it. So I sink into the leg. As I go into the leg, I'm basically compressing the spring of the leg. And what I want to feel is that as I'm compressing it, the leg is trying to return. And I feel that as a stream of energy. So I sink into the leg, but there's something coming up through me, which I allow my body to follow. And then I sink into this leg. And it's as I'm sinking down that the energy that comes against that movement is forced out. And then I let my body follow it. I sink into the leg, something's coming up, and I go with it. The more weight I put on the leg, the more it will try and spring back. And I just want to feel that impending return as a flow. So the pressure's building up, and then eventually my body catches on and flows with it. What we're looking at is what John called the anatomy of the return. So I'm sinking down into this leg. This leg then generates the energy for the return, and I eventually flow with it. Now remember, the reason we work is to wake up and expose spirit. So if I can just keep my mind gently with these repetitions, then I start to sense the shift in my mood that's required to initiate this flow of energy up. It won't happen unless your mind is really quite flexible. Your mind is willing to shift and change. We're not used to that. We're used to having a mind that's sort of set. Children are much better at it. So I'm sinking into the leg, and my mind has to be prepared to shift from sinking depressive mode to cheering up mode. And that spirit, just the ability to shift, ability to change. So I cheer up, something in me lifts, then the energy follows that, and then my body follows that. By sinking down, something brightens inside me. The energy starts flowing up out of the leg, and my body follows. Okay, let's bring it back. And now just turning. And now it's the leg that's pushing that's a little bit. So this straightening back leg that then returns by starting to bend. So this leg is straightening to push this hip round, and then it just breaks, it just bends again, it buckles, and that pulls me back. So the one we've just been practicing, sinking into the leg and bouncing out of it, is the yield becoming an attack. And this is an attack becoming a yield. The straight is starting to bend. On the previous one, the bent leg was starting to straighten. And we feel the yielding impulse as being a softening. So here I'm getting tough and strong, and then I just soften and just become accepting and compassionate. Feel it as a tentacle. So the arm is a tentacle and the leg is. So this leg and this arm are just two tentacles that are straightening, like I'm trying to reach something over here behind myself. This is what's interesting about it. And then I just retract the tentacle in order to bring the thing in or bring myself round towards it. There's a meeting. This is a reaching, and this is a pulling into a meeting. Like in that octopus movie, remember? What became apparent is just how there's nothing mechanical about the octopus's world. Everything is felt, everything is energy, everything is sensitivity. That's how we want to be. So here I'm extending. It's not just my arm and my leg that's extending. Something in my mind has to extend. And then I just soften that and it draws me round. I have to allow my heart to really shift. Probing into the unknown. And I come out with something. I'm fishing, sending my arm out, and then I just tug. Now let's just bring it back. Feel this point again. Feel the part of the spine beneath this point hanging like a plumb line. And the tip of the tail is the plum, the lump of lead. Feel the part of the spine above this point, just rearing up, like you've got a really light point on the top of your head on your crown that's so light, it's just drifting upwards all the time. So I feel these forces, and there's part of me that obeys the forces. So my tail is hanging obediently down. My head is rising obediently upwards. But there's also spirit, which is this desire to fight against the forces. So my tail is trying to whip back. It's trying to come underneath. Everything is sort of being naughty a little bit. Everything is playing against the forces that it's under. And that is the production of energy. And now let's try earth and sky. So just going down and bringing up a handful of earth, packing it into the belly. So when you go down, we're using the hands to do this, but what I'm wanting really is for the hands to sort of trace the legs from the Ming Men. So going across the hips and down. So my hands are helping the visualization, but I want my feeling to be in the legs. Just let yourself turn with it a little bit. So they're never quite together. So that's just an indication that the system is healthy when the components within the system are not being too obedient. They're sort of squabbling, fighting against each other a little bit. I'm sinking down to the ground to bring some earth upwards. I'm making a connection with the ground. That requires us both to bleed in and out of each other. And then this time, just pause at the bottom. And I just want to get my sacrum as close to the ground as possible. Just feel how open in the hips you have to be. And then squeezing up. And now going up for the sky. Reaching up, leaning back a little bit so that your heart is looking directly upwards. And then bringing some of the sky down. Feel the breath, because that's the obvious way in which the sky bleeds in and out of you. Feel the atmosphere. It's resisting your movements. It's thick with activity. And just imagine you're doing this outside. So when you do this outside, you have to be really careful that you don't fall over backwards, because as you look up to the open sky, terror overtakes one. That freedom and openness is terrifying. It's still coming from the belly and the back. It's just a lot bigger. And one more. And then just into riding the horse. So I've been working on the fourfold. There's lots of fourfolds, lots of different people have come up with them. Taoism has one. So heaven, earth, man, and the Tao. So the four components. Saint Augustine had a fourfold. But the one I like is Heidegger's. How are we in the world? You know, what does it mean to be human in a deep sense? We are embedded within this fourfold. The two obvious ones, which combined are just nature, are the earth and the sky. So the earth is not just something that's underneath me, and the sky is something that's over me. They're things that I'm dipping into and pulling into myself all the time. There's flows. The earth is flowing up into me. The sky is flowing down into me. So I am a sort of meeting place. So now let's try combining the earth and the heaven exercise, the earth and the sky. So just going down, taking up a scoop of earth, bringing it up into the dantian, then the hands continue up to the heart, and then they branch out. And I reach up for a handful of sky, and I bring that down into the heart, and then my hands continue down to the dantian, and then they branch out down the legs. Up to the dantian, up to the heart, and then they branch from the heart up into the shoulders, down the arms, up into the sky. And then I draw it down into the heart, into the dantian, and then it separates across the sacrum. There's something about alternating them like this that's really good. And you do one at a time, it's just a bit much. It's a bit too much. reaching up to the sky. Just gives me the courage to then go down to the earth. This is the difficult bit, getting low. And then this just gives me the confidence to reach up into the sky. Back into riding horse. So that's like an exercise you can just do for a long time. And then we want to feel the other two aspects of the fourfold. What in Taoism they call man and the Tao. And what Heidegger called mortals, other living things, and the divinities. So the Tao is a little bit like God. And it's interesting because Heidegger trained as a priest. He started off in a seminary and got disillusioned with Christianity and shifted to philosophy, became the great philosopher. But he always had a sort of religious sense. So his philosophy is actually, it is religious. So for him, being, Sein, is just God, really. Especially, he used to spell Sein with a Y sometimes as like primal being. And it's normally translated as being, B-E-Y-N-G. That's certainly God. But it's interesting that he chose the word divinities rather than God. And I think it's because the divinities are just something that we can all feel. We don't realize it, but if you've got a sense of spirit, and if you can feel spirit, if you can activate spirit, if you can work, so like when you're going for a walk in nature, if you're very attentive and really listening such that your spirit is tingling, then you can feel the spirit in the things that you pass. You can, that tree, that rock, they're all alive in some sort of way. Really, the divinities is just spirit in its multiplicity. Like the butterfly that's flitting around and casting these colors. And then mortals, it's just the other creature that you're communicating with, the other creature that you are respecting, you are looking again at, you are regarding. The way we worked at it with John, I mean, he never talked about it like this, was when he got into the iceberg. Do you remember that? So this thing of the iceberg, it's got a tip sticking out of the ocean. It's got this big lump underneath the ocean. So he visualized it as like an iceberg on its side with the tip coming out here. This is my known world, if you like, that's converging towards a point which is the other person that I'm regarding, that I'm communicating with. And then the mass of the iceberg that's normally submerged is behind me. It's this mass of energy behind me. So that's the divinities, the guardian, the angel. And so this posture, riding horse, it's the perfect posture. because it's really planted on the earth. It's seeping into the earth, and the earth is being brought up into me. Especially if I soften and I feel the spring in the legs. The sky is crushing down. I'm almost having to cower with the pressure from above. And so part of me is having to squeeze into that. But also here I'm homing in on this point in front of me. So my normal attention is here. If you like, my positive attention is here. But I want to really be attentive to everything else. So what's behind me? What's outside of my comfort zone? So there's part of my mind that's in here with my space, with my identity. You can think of that as like the ego or the consciousness. And then everything else that's around it is like the id or the unconscious. I want to have a feeling for that as much as a feeling for this. And the best way is to really keep them quite well defined. This is the value of the arms up like this. It's like a barrier between the two zones. And then we can just work with that a little bit. In other words, just get the two playing and bleeding in and out of each other a little bit, simply by turning. Like waving hands in the clouds, I turn to the side and I open up to the side. So this is like a zone that's unknown, but also I can sort of see it when I'm facing front. So it's not too dangerous. I just turn towards the side. My heart opens and extends, and then I embrace. I'm opening up to the unknown other. And instead of killing them, I embrace them. So this is the Christian imperative, really. Love the other, regardless of whether they're your neighbor or you know them. Open your heart and embrace and bring it in. And feel the hand that's really reaching behind you. Feel the arm dipping into your blind spot. There's a point where it stops being visible, and just feel it shift. Feel the energetic shift as it passes out of the known and into the unknown. And then just round again. So feel this space, this round spaces. So to get a sense of that, it's almost like I have blinkers on, sheltering me from everything that's outside of that. And then I want to just be able to switch and get my mind into the negative, into what's outside of this positive space. And to connect with the bigger world, I really have to be prepared to abandon my own world. This is negative capability. The ability to just let go of what you know so that reality can come in. Because if we're full of what we know, then that knowledge keeps the world out. It's a barrier. So negative capability. It's like the ability to say no, but you're saying no to knowledge, or no to distraction, no to information, no to excess. So you're just becoming really frugal and bare. And then you can sense the richness of possibility, like that Italian guy's quote. So the world of energy is the world of possibility. Nothing is known, nothing is for sure. And this is the state we want to be in. John always used to say, the only way you're going to do the work is if you fall in love with it. So basically, the work, in a nutshell, is learning to quieten the mind. So for that, you really need to endeavor to open up the world of energy, because if you open up the world of energy, you'll realize it's just far more interesting than you will ever be. And that's where you'll want to be. You'll want to be out there exploring instead of festering away up here. That's what we have to remind ourselves all the time. So in Augustine's fourfold, one of them was depravity. not able not to sin. So this is the state that we're all in. We're always in a state of sin because we're always talking to ourselves. We've become very civilized about it, so it's not really imposing on anyone else, but it does, because it diminishes the world. You know, if you meet someone that's attentive, that's really listening, then it's all hard. You know, something can really happen. Whereas you pass someone in the street and they're so into their headphones or into their phone that they don't even notice you. That's sin. Disregarding the other. Now let's bring it up. And a little bit of this one. And now as you do this one, just try and get down. A sense that you're slipping sort of underneath this point. So when you really sink, it's not as though you're sinking the Dan Chen, you're sort of getting underneath the Dan Chen. This is the feeling. So part of my mind now is with these feet that are sort of digging away at the ground. They're like little miners, shoveling, little navvies, shoveling away. And then just let it settle. It's basically a figure of 8 that's there all the time, which stops the system freezing, becoming set and stiff. There's a little figure of 8 in your sacrum, a little one back of the heart, between the two shoulder blades, and a little one in the occiput here.